I don't think you can ever have enough storage space, and this door hanging storage actually makes the most of space that you'd normally find wasted, like on the back of your door. That could be a kitchen door, a bathroom door, a bedroom door, any door you like. It's very quick and very simple to make, and of course you can adapt it to any size that you like as well. So here's your list of materials, what you need to cut. Let's get sewing. Your backing fabric can be cut to any size you want it to be. So if you wanted to make this longer, maybe go the whole length of your door, make it shorter, wider, narrower, that's entirely up to you. So cut your foam to size. It's easy to actually cut the size of your foam first of all, and then iron your fabric over the top of it. So this is single-sided fusible foam, so it's not sticky on this side. And when you do adhere this with your iron, use a blast of steam, as hot as your fabric will take. So you might want to do a little test patch first of all. I've also cut my backing fabric to the same size, and I've cut out my pockets. So I'm going to have a long thin pocket across the front, and then a larger one in the centre, and then two deeper pockets just on the bottom here. But again, you can custom make these to any size you like. If you needed a particularly narrow one, if you wanted to keep cards, business cards and things like that in there, then you can do. If you wanted to make one very deep pocket like that instead of two smaller pockets, again, that's entirely up to you. So the first thing I'm going to do is the pockets, and I'm going to sew these right sides together just across the long sides with both of them to make two tubes, and then we'll do those smaller pockets shortly. Oh, what else I did was to put my swivel snaps onto a piece of ribbon, and I've glued that in place so they're not going to slide up and down across the ribbon, and I've made it in this kind of a wide V shape so that I've got the most of the ribbon touching the actual swivel clasp. And these, if you think, well, I haven't really got any of those, and they can be quite expensive. If ever you go to the shows and you're given a lanyard, which is thrown away at the end of the show, then you've probably got one of these hanging off the end of it. So make sure you don't throw those away. So just iron them with the seam straight along the edge. Like so, and do that with both pockets. So then I'm going to edge stitch just across the top here, and that's going to give me a more professional finish. It's like those little finishing touches that give you a shop bought look. I'll do that in just a second. I'm also going to sew together the shaped pockets. So these again go right sides together like so. And this time I'm going to sew all the way around the edges, but leave a gap of around about 2 inches or 1.5 inches in the bottom here so that I can turn them the right side out. When you've sewn all the way around, snip off the corners, and that's going to make it easier to make the corners pointy, less bulk of fabric on the inside of the seam. But leave the bottom open, because when we put this onto the hanger, that's when the bottom's going to be sewn over. You'll see that in just a second. So I finished my pockets off with the top stitching along here, and those are my two shape pockets, and they've got the gap in the bottom still, and again I've top stitched just to make that nice and neat. So let's pop these onto the cover. So just to make sure they're straight, I'm going to sit them over my ruler. So that one will be 1.5 inches from the top. And if you have fabric clips, these may be a little easier to hold everything in place rather than trying to pin. Like so. Just need to open that out a little bit. And then my second pocket is going to go underneath here. And my shaped pockets just on the bottom. So I'm just arranging these so that they're sitting centrally and straight. And with these, I'm just going to literally stab a few pins into the foam to hold them in place. Now sew straight across the bottom of each of the longer pockets and just across the bottom of the shaped pockets, and I'll put just a few stitches in the side here to hold the whole thing together when I start to put the backing on. Now let's give the pockets at the bottom a little bit of shape. So I'm going to lift at the sides and just pull them in slightly. You can make these as deep as you like. So if you keep the pocket square to the base, you're going to have quite a deep pocket. And if you leave them slightly out from the base, then you'll have a less deep pocket. So have a play with that and see how it works for you. And again, I'm just going to spike a couple of pins in there to hold it in place. And the same with this side. You can measure those if you want it to be precise, but you can usually tell just by looking at it whether they're symmetrical. Snip off your thread. That's it. And then we'll sew down each side. And just at the top here, go backwards and forwards a couple of times, and that's going to make the seam stronger. So if you're putting something in there that's quite heavy, it's not going to pull the pocket away from the backing. Just to mention also, when you're putting your pockets on, don't put them right up to the edge of the fabric, because you're going to have a seam allowance of around about 1/4 of an inch around here. So you don't want the pockets to be involved in the seam allowance. I'm going to put some dividing lines down here now. And again, you can choose where you want these to go. So I'm going to put mine 4 inches from the edge. So with an erasable ink pen or a chalk pencil, then just put your markings down there. But have a play with this and just see where you want the pockets to be. So you could have very narrow pen pockets, you could have one big wide pocket. That's entirely up to you. So the way I've done this by marking 4 inches at either side means that I get a larger pocket in the middle and then 2 small pockets at each side. And just like I did with the shaped pockets, backwards and forwards a couple of times at the top to make that seam stronger. There's my pockets. Let's snip these threads away again, make it neat. Then I'm going to add the ribbon. Now it's up to you, but I like to just hold it in place with a little bit of glue before I sew. You could use a temporary glue stick. You don't have to if you don't want to. And I'm just going to add my hooks to the bottom of those pockets, like so. Let that dry for a couple of seconds. Oops. And then I'm going to sew across the seam, which is why I haven't put the hooks too close to the fabric, because I don't want my foot going over them. The rest of my ribbon, oops, I'll need to cut into 4-inch lengths, just while that's drying. I need 3 pieces. And these are going to go on the top of my cover, let's just trim away the excess pocket. My pockets are a little bit wider than the backing, but that's fine. Better too wide than too short. A little bit off this one as well. So measure the centre. And then place one ribbon folded in half right over the centre point. And then we'll have another couple towards the end. So these are a couple of inches from each end. And I'm just going to sew those in place quite close to the edge so it's within the seam allowance. So again, just sew those in place and we'll sew across those ribbons to secure them. So we're looking good. What I need to do now is to sew the backing fabric right sides together with the front. And I'm going to sew all the way around the edge just with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but leave a gap in the bottom of around about 5 inches so I can turn it the right side out. So just like I did with the pockets, when I've sewn around the edge, snip across the corners, turn the whole thing the right side out, press it, and then I'm going to edge stitch close to the edge, and that's going to help the whole hanging unit to keep its shape. Just about finished. All we need to do now is to thread the doweling pole through the top. You can actually buy some really pretty hangers if you have a look online that have like wrought iron shapes and things to them, so that might be a nice idea, but for economy's sake, a piece of doweling is going to be fine. And I'm just going to wrap this around a couple of times and tie a knot. It's really simple. You could use your matching ribbon if you prefer, instead of just piping cord that I've used here, like so. Whoops, and there we are, all ready to hang. So where's it going to be for? Is this going to be in the kids' bedroom? Is it going to be hanging by the door so that you know that you've got your keys and everything, maybe your pass for work, nice and handy? Great kitchen storage, or of course it's going to be perfect in your sewing room. So I hope you enjoy the tutorial, and I hope you enjoy making yours.